Increasing numbers of farmers are involved in environmental restoration work. The Hayes family began on their dairy farm's lakes in 1999. The lakes and their surrounds are conservation areas administered by DoC. The Waikato Program Manager for Biodiversity at DoC is John Gumbley, who shares some background about Waikato's lakes and the work involved in protecting those that remain.
In the Waikato region broadly, there are just under 100 lakes, and within an hour's drive of Lake Kaituna here in the Horsham Downs Lakes complex, there are about 50 lakes. Of those lakes, most of them are peat lakes, and these peat lakes have been formed between 2 and 25,000 years ago. Over the past century, at least 75% of the Waikato's wetlands have been drained and lost, and those that remain are in quite a degraded state. These lakes are prone to degradation because they're shallow, 3 to 4 metres deep max, small and isolated. But the contributing factors to their decline as a consequence of the fact that they're in an agricultural catchment now, and they receive a significant amount of sediment from farmland and a significant loading of nitrogen and phosphorus from farms. So these lakes naturally are very, very low in nutrients. But the Waikato lakes now are exceedingly high in nutrients. What compounds this is the fact that we also have pest fish introduced into the lake. There isn't a single lake in the Waikato that doesn't have feral goldfish, catfish, and in this lake it's got koi carp. The effect of these fish is to uproot the lake bed sediments, disturb vegetation growth, and fundamentally resuspend the nitrogen and phosphorus that's come in from the catchment.
These are pied shags. They're sitting on the box out there. Yeah.
Andrew and Jenny Hayes have been recognised by the Ministry for the Environment for their outstanding efforts in working with the whole community to rescue the health of 2 lakes on their farm. Over the years, they have worked closely with DoC and the Regional Council.
With the restoration of this lake, we've provided advice to Andrew about weed control, animal pest control. We've been able to relocate species that have once existed at this lake. We've also provided him with a whole farm management plan, and the purpose of those plans is twofold. One is to increase farm profitability, and the second objective is to apply more sustainable land management practices.
It's 88 hectares effective, and we used to milk around 300, we dropped to about 280, 285 cows. Half's Hamilton clay and the rest is Kaipiki peat low. It doesn't dry out in the summer so much because we've got this buffer zone around the lake. It's got this sort of a swamp right around. When we first came here in 1981, the little lake Kaumakarau was 1 metre deep, and Kaituna was 4 metres deep, and then the land across the road and that lake was getting developed, and the silt just kept coming through. Now, like up to 1998, the silt was that little lake is only about 6 inches or half a metre deep, and the bigger lake Kaituna is 1 metre deep, so it's just filled up. And the other thing that turned things around in 98, the whole lake just went bellied up, and all the fish, everything just died, bird life, the whole lot. When an eel, nothing left in there, it just stunk. We couldn't see those lakes because of the willow right around it. Now we just got the view and see the water and all that sort of thing, and just the nature that's around it, the insects, the birds, you name it, the fish. It's just unbelievable what we get down there.
Cabbage trees, cockatiels, all your different rushes and that, you know, bellmares, things I never knew before about. That seed has been here since the Taupo eruption, which was 2,000 years. So all the seed was just sitting there and the willow was just taking it out.
The reason we've been able to work in with the Regional Council and DoC, like, that they understand what we're doing here. Everybody needs help. It's balancing the whole thing out. There's no use being loggerheads about it. It's just you've got to work together, and the farmer becomes a better farmer. He becomes smarter. His profitability doesn't go down. Like, we've retired 5 hectares here, and you can't get that through the farmers till they've actually done it. And once they've done it, they understand. That's where the big breakthrough is. It's not taking shortcuts anywhere.
We don't want to see the lake go backwards again, so we focused on the lake and got the lake right. Now we're focusing on the farming to the lake. So we've got these silt traps going. We had silt traps in the reserve, but they were filling up, and the problem was there. We couldn't get the digger in to clean them, we couldn't get a tractor in or anything like that, so we had to bring them back out in the hard land, and it's a lot better system. Probably would have lost about a half a hectare in the system itself, but if you look at it, you can see it before the water was backing right up the drains, so you had all that land there wet, so you wouldn't hear by having all that drainage back into here. So you got a lot more grass growth. With N and P runoff, what I've learned here has been quite good because I've been able to focus on it. It was Rebecca coming to us to do a PhD. She's been here for 3 years. It's made me realise and knowing how much was running down the drain. She's been testing for it and things like that. So there's been less input onto the farm with fertiliser and that. That saves us a huge lot of money. It's the same as the whole farm environment management plan under Alison Dew. So we're down to 25% of our fertiliser and we're getting the same dry matter growth per hectare.
Andrew's restoration work's been quite significant for the lake, particularly in regard to the sedimentation traps which he's created. There are 10 inlet drains to this lake, 8 of which are purely from Andrew's farm and 2 from neighbouring properties. And Andrew has created these sedimentation traps to try and reduce the amount of silt which was flowing into the lake, and literally filling up the lake and making it shallower. So the silt traps have certainly captured a lot more sediment. They are regularly cleaned out every year or 2, depending on the site, and the evidence is in how much silt is removed from these silt traps. From monitoring the drains running into the lake, I've picked up a reduction in nitrogen and phosphorus in the past 3 years. It takes time to get a measurable response in a lake ecosystem from restoration efforts like this. A better indication of Andrew's hard work and dedication is actually by monitoring the systems, these silt traps and wetlands, and taking samples of the water coming into them and going out of them, so we know how effectively they're working to reduce the nutrients coming into the lake.
Working with Andrew and Jenny has clearly established a model for working with the other farmers in the other 50-odd lakes locally. And so combining that with the partnership that the Department of Conservation now has with Fonterra, which is so natural that we wonder why we didn't do it years ago, means that we can truly make a good kickstart into providing a number of model lakes, model catchment management programs for which others can then learn off.
A $20 million 10-year